Hello everyone, welcome to episode 16 of Tracknowledgement, the series where I delve behind the scenes into the kind of sampling production I do here in the studio, looking at how I find samples, combine samples, edit them, pitch shift them, layer them, whatever. And recently I've been looking at the sample challenges that I've been doing for the Producers Corner Facebook group. And the most recent one is sample challenge number 115. The source material was an album called Frontiers of Science by Alan Hawkshaw. And it's this kind of primitive synthesizer instrumental album, somewhere between, like a cross between the opening titles for Time Bandits and Kraftwerk and kind of like early weird minimalistic Vangelis stuff. So cool stuff, but kind of sparse and monophonic and whatever. So and actually I was going to skip this challenge because I was away all that week. Didn't get a chance to do anything. I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to do anything. And I got home on Saturday, which is the normal deadline for anyone to get their submissions in. So I was just going to, sit out that week and listen to everyone else's. And that would have been cool. But I got back very late on Saturday to find out that they had extended the deadline to Sunday at noon. So, what the hell? Thought I'd throw my hi-hat into the ring, as it were. And I looked at the source material, kind of a couple of things jumped out at me. I started to loop one thing and it reminded me of something else, so I threw it together with something I'd already looped but hadn't really worked on. So that was a bit of a shortcut. And then I fell asleep. So really most of this work I did Sunday morning. And I thought I'd get it done by noon. I didn't get it done by noon. It was like, soon after. And I sent it in to Chris knowing that it wasn't really, what's the word? It didn't qualify. Wasn't eligible to win or whatever. I didn't, think that it would because I didn't spend much time on it. But, wanted to show you what I did anyway, what I came up with in a very short period of time. So, looking at the original material, the first kind of major loop that jumped out at me was this. Put the click on. That loops there. So that's kind of dark, spooky, low keyboard sounds. And there was something about that, the tone of that, that clicked something in my head. I had looped up a piece of music, actually kind of a sound design thing, from a movie from a couple of years ago called Annihilation, which, I don't know, it's an interesting movie. Visually stunning, great sound design. So, I kind of appreciate it on that level. The story and, I don't know, its whole purpose is kind of murky, but there's one scene in particular where Natalie Portman comes face to face with this kind of entity, this alien entity, and man, the sound design and the score mesh to a point where you're not sure whether it's score, whether it's music, or you're hearing the voice, the sound of this thing, and it's just beautiful and haunting and dangerous, and it just shakes the speakers. And I loved it, so I looped it up, and that was this. I'll turn it way up here. I put the click on, you can hear it on beat. So I had looped that up, I don't know, last year sometime, and just left it. You know, I didn't do anything with it. I just wanted to loop it, and it had a melody, a melodic feel to it, but it was just so dark, and it was just kind of a bass line, and I didn't know what I'd do with it. But the Alan Hawkshaw thing reminded me of that, so I just mixed the two of them, which sounds like this. So there's a lot of kind of subwoofer rumble there and everything, which is cool. And they just, you know, they worked enough together. And right at that point, I knew I was going to call this beat Annihilation. And that started to spark this whole feeling of death and destruction and everything. And that fed into some vocal samples I'll show you in a bit. But, so that's the main thing I found from Alan Hawkshaw. And then after that first loop goes, I found a second one. Alright, now that's just... Nope, that's the same thing. Oh, alright, yeah, sorry. That's the same thing with, it's just filtered down to a bass. This is the other one that I found. Very Vangelis, right? So I just pitch shifted those, got him in on key. I wanted something a little more rhythmical, and there were these kind of arpeggiated pieces of synth on there, and I looped them up. I faded them in here. This is one of them. This is actually at half speed. Pitch shifted a couple of those to go with the progression. Very Kraftwerk, you know. This is the other one, full speed. Not much there. They're just kind of filler. Something to come in for a change. This is with the original loop. So, at the very beginning of my beat, I have this piece from Alan Hawkshaw. Just some chords. That actually goes really well with the Annihilation thing. Let me show you. So, again, you know, analog stuff, dark, grungy. And that's really it, is that main loop, the main loop filtered for a bass, the two arpeggiated things which are panned left and right, those opening chords, and then the that high thing, those kind of horns. All that stuff's from Alan Hawkshaw. Again, I'm doing this like in a flurry of activity Sunday morning. So I kind of called quits to it. Didn't want to, you know, keep on working on it too long. But then I needed some beats, So the first thing is I chopped up this breakbeat, made my own pattern out of it. Went over that with some 808 and 909 sounds. That's just mine. Added a drum kit, or splashy snare. Also little rolls on the snare. The crash cymbal, ride cymbal. There's some trills on the hi-hats, which in the final mix you don't actually hear. I don't usually do trills on hi-hats. I mean, I used to a long time ago, but it's such a thing. It's a genre now that, I don't know, but it kind of sounded cool. But once you add the breakbeat, you don't really hear it. Those bells are from the 808 or 909, 909 I think. Over that I added another breakbeat. Just for more percussion. Another breakbeat purely for its percussive qualities. That snare. Filtered out everything but the snare really on that. I also have the breakdown. And that goes into the beats. I'm used to that kind of thing. The breakbeat stuff I can throw together in a flash and edit and put in breakdowns and everything. So got all that done pretty quickly. So that's a bunch of breakbeats, and it was fun doing the 808 and 909 stuff. This stuff here. I have a feeling some of that 808 got squished out when I mastered it, but you know, again, I was in a rush. So that's the Alan Hawkshaw stuff, the breakbeats, a lot of my own drum programming. Then what did I do? What is this? Is another beat? It's another beat, right? Yeah, right. So Annihilation. And then at the beginning, I knew I wanted this voice sample.
Most effective, Your Majesty. We'll destroy this
Later. I like to play with things a while for annihilation.
Which, of course, is from the beginning of Flash Gordon, the 1980 movie. But in my experience, it was from the beginning of the Flash Gordon soundtrack, which I listened to a lot before I even saw that movie. So it's by Queen. So he says, you know, Annihilation. I have that other sample from Annihilation. Then I thought maybe I'd put in Voltan from Flash Gordon saying, "Who wants to live forever?" But there's a lot of guitar going on behind that piece, so I couldn't use that. But then that clicked, Queen and Who Wants to Live Forever. So then I grabbed this sample from the Highlander soundtrack and pitch shifted it way out. Had to pitch shift that. when that goes at the end, it goes up. That pitch shift sounds awkward on its own, but with the music it works. Keeps it on key. Here's it goes up. So, put some reverb on that. So, that on its own is kind of odd, but when you listen to it with the music, let me add beats and music. Hang on. That and that. Alright. So that's kind of, it's almost in there just to entertain me. I do that all the time, little things that just kind of, oh cool, you know, for me. And if someone else notices, great. No one said they recognized that, but if you listen, you can kind of pick it out. It's tough because it's so pitch shifted out. And it ends up giving it this kind of chorus sound, which combined with the breakbeats and the kind of synth keyboards, it almost makes it sound like something from Enigma, you know, early 90s Enigma. Also, knowing Annihilation, I went and I found and used this sample.
Annihilating.
From Grace Jones, which I had first heard, I mean, I suppose I had heard the Grace Jones song, but I had first heard sampled in Back to Burn, Tila Rock, I believe, produced by Mantronic, I think. So that goes the Annihilating and echoes. And then at the very end of the song, again, more death stuff. I went back and actually used something that I had mentioned in a previous Tracknowledgement, that I have this DVD of the making of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and they have some of the original little voice clips that they had used where they had interviewed people about life and death and insanity and whatever. And this guy saying this.
Why should I be frightened of dying?
And
See no reason for it. You gotta go sometime.
so, put that in at the end. And, you know, huge nod just to Pink Floyd. So, the last thing I did is I wanted some cuts. I wanted some vinyl in there. I like putting vinyl cuts in all of these sample challenges. Didn't know what to add. Thought I'd just grab a sound or something. And I went digging in my vinyl. And honestly, sometimes these things just work out. Because what I came across was this, which I forgot I had. I have this vinyl of Orson Welles' original War of the Worlds radio drama. You know, the one that made everyone go nuts. Halloween, what was it? 1938. So, and I didn't even bother really looking through it a lot. I jumped right to the end figuring he'd be saying something. I'd listened to it a long time ago, but I don't know it by heart. And this thing about, he says about being alone in the universe and aliens and stuff. Scratch.
Before the cylinder fell, there was general persuasion that through all the deep space.
Echo on it.
No life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further.
And that was the final touch on that. You know, spent, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours doing that.
Annihilating, 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 annihilating.
And that's that. That's another sample challenge done and over with. Yeah, not much to it. And I didn't spend a ton of time mixing it or editing it, anything. It just kind of, I put it out there. I wanted to have something on the show, so I did. It sounded pretty good. Anyway, so I'll be back next time for sample challenge number 116, whatever it is. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.